One of the toughest things about getting started with SDN application development is just getting your environment set up. All you want to do is actually code some applications for SDN, but instead you spend many minutes, if not hours, setting up your controller, connecting switches, etc. We're going to show you how to get started in 10 minutes or less. So to get started, we're going to follow the quick start guide. So step one is to open up your browser. Once it's open, we're going to go over to dev.elbrys.com. We're going to notice it's an SDN platform as a service. We'll click Educational Materials. Third paragraph down, we're going to click on that quick start guide. We're actually going to open it in a new tab. First thing we're going to do is create a free account. We'll just click on the first step of the quick start guide. That takes us over to where we log in. You can sign up with either GitHub or with a username and password. We're going to use GitHub. We click sign up. It asks us to authorize. We say authorize, and that's it. Let's just take a quick look at the SDN Developer Lab screen. The SDN Developer Lab screen is broken into three tables. One is the controller table at the top, then the SDN applications that are currently running, and then the devices that are connected. You can see on the applications table we've been given an ID and a secret already, and then on the controller table we don't have ports or IP because it's not running yet. Let's ensure that your computer meets prerequisites. Okay, so let's just get back to the quick start guide and check out what the next step is. So quick start guide, step 2, make sure you have prerequisites. We'll click on that. List of prerequisites. So we're going to open a terminal window to test this. We'll rearrange our windows, and then what we're going to do is test Python ---- version. We do have Python installed. Next is to test that we have pip installed, pip ---- version. Sure enough, we have that installed. Next is to check git, which is git ---- version, which, oops, I typoed it. Yeah, let's try that again. But clearly it is there because it gave us an error about not knowing what ---- version is. Last is checking that we have VirtualBox installed, so our computer meets the prereqs. Let's actually start a controller. Alright, so let's get back to the quick start guide and see what step 3 is. Step 3 says we're going to start a controller. In fact, the SDN lab starts a controller for you. You can see it's already started hydrogen for us, but that's not what we want. So we really want lithium, so we have to stop the one we have. So we click stop. You can see it's stopping. Just wait a couple seconds, it will stop. And then pick lithium and then click start. It says, hey, just so you know, it will take some time to get this started. And interestingly, after you've clicked start, you may not see the state change to starting right away, but you will see a little blue box around start, so you know it's working on it. You just wait here a couple seconds. There you go. It says starting. So it's going to take a little time to start, so we're going to go do something else. So as the SDN lab screen indicates, there's three things. There's a controller, there's your application, and there's a switch. The switch could be a hardware switch or a virtual switch. In this demonstration, we're going to get you started with a virtual switch because we've got our controller starting to run. We're going to set up this virtual switch, and then you'll be able to write applications. To connect the virtual switch, we need to download it to your machine. Okay, so let's get back to the quick start guide. Check step 4, which is connect a MiniNet virtual switch. We're just going to open that in a new tab. And then we're going to rearrange our tabs so that the SDN lab screen is always to the left and pinned over there so that we know where it is. Back at our virtual switch instructions, it says if you go to your developer lab, on the devices table, there's a download on the right hand side of the table. There it is, download MiniNet VM. We sped this download up. This is actually downloading a virtual machine image of MiniNet plus a set of tools and pre-configuration that will work with the developer lab. And so we've sped this up so it should complete the download here fairly quickly. There it goes. Let's just check on our controller. It is now running, so that's good too. Okay, so now that we've downloaded that file, let's get it in VirtualBox. Okay, back on the virtual switch instructions, we see that it says, hey, maybe you should copy that file out of your downloads to someplace safe. So we're just going to move it from where it is over to our documents folder. There you go. And then next it says bring it into VirtualBox. So we're going to go ahead and open VirtualBox. And then we're going to put it down over there. And then off of the file menu, we'll pick import and then go browse to where we just put it, which is in our documents, and say open. We just double check. It is in fact the developer portal switch. We'll say import. This takes a number of seconds, obviously, but we went ahead and sped it up. Okay, we've loaded the virtual machine into VirtualBox. Let's start it. Okay, so let's go back to our virtual switch instructions. And it says basically you have the virtual machine with the switch in it. Go ahead and start it. So we go to VirtualBox. We select it, we click Start, and in fact it starts the virtual machine. Next we need to start the virtual switch in that virtual machine. So we've got our virtual machine up there in the right hand side of the screen. We're going to log in with Mininet, and then according to the instructions we should switch into, let me rearrange my windows here a little bit. We're going to switch into first SDN app directory, then we're going to do a git pull just to make sure it's fully up to date. Then we do a sudo su to become super user, and next we will go ahead and enter this command that's going to start the virtual switch. Fundamentally, it's going to need a couple pieces of information that we're going to find on the SDN lab screen. So I'm going to rearrange a little bit here, and then I'm going to start typing first switch, Python first switch.py --ID, and there's our ID on the dev lab screen. So we'll just type that in here after ID, and then --, server is the next flag we give, and then we put the IP address, which is right there on the controller screen, so we'll go ahead and type that in, and then --, port. This is really important. You want the OpenFlow port, not the REST API port. And sure enough, there goes our switch, and it starts it. We now have a virtual switch running. Your controller is running, your switch is connected, you now have a fully functional developer lab running. It's time to write an application on top of that lab. In fact, once the lab's running, you'll be able to write any number of applications and run them simultaneously on your lab. Okay, so let's go back to the quick start guide. Step 5, run the sample RESTconf application. It brings us to the instructions, which says open a terminal window, git clone the sample application to your computer, which we will go ahead and do, which pretty much just copies it, and then we cd down into that directory. Okay, so now that we've got it, let's go ahead and run the application. So it is Python space the name of the application, which is first RESTconf app.py, then a number of parameters, --ID, admin, --, secret, admin, --, server. We get the IP of the server off of the SDN controller header there, and then --, port. You want the OpenFlow port this time, so we enter 6701, and there it goes, it ran. Ta-da! You have run your first SDN application on top of your developer lab. Good job. Congratulations, you've actually run your first SDN app. So what are you going to do next? Well, the developer lab has a few ideas of what you might want to do next. If you go back to the home page, you could connect an actual physical switch. We've got a number of instructions on how to do that. Also back on the home page, you could try out some sample applications, whether they be RESTconf or OpenNAC. And then again, you could create your own SDN application using the documentation we've given you, or be inspired by someone else who's created some other applications on top of the system. And that's broken down by OpenNAC or RESTconf APIs. And finally, when you have questions, check out our communities. We purposely have public communities so that everybody can help everybody with their questions and answers. We will be tracking them. Just put the word Elbrys in your question so that we can find it amidst all the other public questions that are going on. We will answer them, or maybe someone else from the community will give an even better answer. We can carry on a conversation with each other. And please keep coming back, because we're going to keep adding new content, new sample applications, and new switches that can be connected.